Now, let's return to Edinburgh Airport this morning. Steph is there mingling with travellers, asking questions about travel in relation to the EU referendum, of course. Morning to you, Steph.
Good morning to you. Morning, everybody. Yep, I've been having a good old chat to everyone here at the airport this morning. There was a stag do off to Amsterdam, sporting some rather nice leotards, I have to say. Also, there's a lacrosse team that's just flown in from North Carolina, so I was having a chat with them. They've got a match later on up here in Edinburgh today. So this is big business tourism. We have so many people coming in. We've got Vicky and Lauren there this morning. They've been in since 4 o'clock this morning, making sure everyone's getting set off all right. They've been desperate to be on TV, them too. But we're here to talk about what impact EU membership has on travel and tourism, because it's certainly worth a lot of money to us, something like £127 billion to the UK economy. And I've been travelling the country as part of my referendum road trip, looking at how it affects different issues, so everything from fishing and finance, trade, logistics, scientific research, energy as well, just looking at what it all means for those different sectors. So I've got 3 guests here with me this morning to talk about what it means for travel. We've got Deirdre, who's from an organisation that represents tourism companies in the UK. We've also got Philip, who's worked in the industry, in the tourism industry, for over 50 years, and Glenn, who is our BBC Scotland political correspondent. So Philip, I'm going to start with you on this one, because there's been a lot of talk about the cost of travel and how the cost of travel could go up if we leave the European Union. You don't think that's the case, do you? Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, if you're going to buy a package, obviously, the tour operator would have bought and hedged his currency forward anyway, as they would have done with fuel charges. So the notion that a family holiday is going to go up, what was it, by £250 is total rubbish.
But the pound, and the argument is because the pound is likely to fall.
Yeah, but I don't even subscribe to that. I mean, there's an equal argument that the euro could fall out of bed if we left Brexit. It could destabilise the whole structure, I think. My first job, you know, in 1967, when Wilson devalued the pound by 14.3%, I had to go around all those hotels and renegotiate them. Otherwise, British holidaymakers would have had to pay more. In the event, they agreed. Why did they agree? Because we represented such a strong buying power. And if they lost our trade, they would probably not ever get it back. And that is what would happen now.
Deirdre, let me bring you into this, because you've surveyed your members, haven't you, about what they think about the EU referendum, and they're concerned that it could hit their business if we left.
That's right. 82% of my members at UKinbound said they were in favour of staying. And that's really because we welcomed 36 million visitors to the UK last year, and that brought £22 billion to the economy, and 2/3 of them came from the EU. And the concern that my members have is that if we were to withdraw from that market, it would be catastrophic for their business, given how much of it it represents.
Why? Why would it be catastrophic? Because people would still want to come to visit the UK, wouldn't they?
They would, but we are in a globalised competitive market now, and I mean, Philip talked about margins, and margins are very tight for businesses at the moment, and anything that puts a greater barrier to travel is never good for business. One of the benefits that we have is the underpinning of the European Union of free movement of people and trade. So that means that anybody can travel around the EU for holiday, for business, and also, very importantly, my members who work with operators across the EU can work on a level playing field. So we are working on a level playing field. I think there's also a real danger that, although we do have fantastic tourism product here, we have wonderful heritage, beautiful countryside, we're minutes away from it here in Edinburgh, but there is a perception that the UK is not very welcoming, and that has a real impact on people deciding where to go on holiday, and that can only get worse if we were to leave.
Philip, what do you think on that?
I think it's really a load of tosh, really. I mean, we're talking about a membership of 350 people here. There was a poll of a travel blog, 96,000 subscribers. Their result was exactly 50-50. That's in the travel business. Now, I think that the biggest problem we have is, if you take the United States, for example, they're very confused about the geography of Europe. They don't really know the distances between Cannes and London. If there's some incident in Europe, they would have been inclined to stay away from Europe entirely.
What do you think?
We need to keep our identities separate.
What do you think of the advantages are of leaving then?
Well, the advantages of leaving are we would stop the effective cartelisation of the business. We're hollowing out the travel business, very much like we've hollowed out the fishing industry. It's falling in fewer hands. Those hands tend to be German hands. You take the big tour operators, the Germans. I had to sell my business because of this effective cartelisation. So what did that do? That distracted from choice, and it also, in the event, it will increase prices.
So you think it affects choice? Glenn, just to bring you in on this, again, you know, it's complicated, isn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, the big argument this morning is about leaving the European Union, reducing the value of the pound. The Treasury says that would happen, and if they're right about that, certainly it would be more expensive for us to travel and holiday abroad. But a potential flip side of that is that it might make the UK more attractive if people from the rest of the EU and beyond, if their money went further, coming to the UK. Much of this debate is about the freedom of movement, the freedom to travel, to visit, to live and work in the European Union, and the freedom to trade in goods and services across the EU. We shouldn't assume that those freedoms would automatically go if we voted to leave the EU. The question, though, is what deal, what arrangements would we negotiate after leaving? And the difficulty for the leave side is that voters can't know what that looks like in advance of the vote on June the 23rd.
Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the sofa. Some more people coming through. Oh, there we are. Lots of holiday makers coming home there. That's it for me for now. You'll see you in about 20 minutes' time.
OK, thanks very much indeed. Steph, thank you.